Coming up on show 559, the longer range Bolt EV, order books opening for the electric Peugeot, and an embarrassing mistake for Audi. Also on the show today, we are talking about a Lexus EV, Singapore's love-hate relationship with electric cars, and the Vauxhall Corsa E goes racing. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. This is the news for Friday, 23rd of August. My name is Martyn Lee, and this is what you missed in the last 24 hours. Show being delivered slightly later than planned because of a delay writing and recording. It's been a very busy bank holiday weekend here in the UK, and a day and a half of that was spent travelling and enjoying EVs in the park. An update on that in a future show. Well, thank you very much, as always, to myev.com for making this show with me. They are the world's first marketplace to buy, sell, exchange information about EVs. If you're a dealer on there as well, it's a new section on version 2.0 of MyEV. Click on the dealer section. Well, order books have now opened for the Peugeot, the all-electric and all-new Peugeot 208. It's called the e-208, and order books opened yesterday. Deliveries are starting in early 2020. Much like many new EVs that are around at the moment, I think you'll find that phrase around a lot. Orders taken now, deliveries early 2020. In fact, January the 1st, 2020, for very boring emissions regulatory rules. I won't go into it now. The TLDR version is new regulations come in and it penalises you if you sell an ICE vehicle, but if you sell an EV as well, then it kind of cancels each other out. It's not quite that, but so if you also make an EV and you make ICE cars, wait to ship your EVs until the 1st of January. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the e-208 then. If you fancy getting one rather than the 1.2 litre petrol or the 1.5 litre diesel, they call it a BlueHDi. I had a Blue Motion Golf that was meant to be clean. I think they use that word blue because it sort of sounds like it could be clean. It's diesel. It's not. Order books opened yesterday, and the all-new electric e-208 comes in the Active, the Allure and the GT line trims, and a range-topping GT specification as well. It's weird, isn't it? It's like Porsche using the Taycan Turbo name. There's no turbo in an EV, and there's no GT needed for an electric car. Anyway, the e-208 with the government plug-in, which is £3,500, will start at about £289 per month on a 48-month contract, £5,500 deposit, and for less than £300, you could be having a Peugeot e-208 in your driveway. Reminder, 50 kilowatt hour battery pack, 136 horsepower electric motor, 211 miles on the WLTP test cycle. And a car right up against it in the same class, same price bracket, and that is the Vauxhall, and the Vauxhall Corsa E, or maybe the Opel Corsa E, depending on where you live in the world. They have plans to take the new Corsa E e-rallying in the freshly created e-rally series organised by ADAC, or maybe it's ADAC, in 2020. The e-rally cup is replacing the old Opel Rally Cup, and it's all about introducing fresh talent to racing in a way that will get people talking using electric cars, says evo.co.uk. The Corsa E rally car itself will have an identical powertrain to the one that you'll be driving on the road. It'll feature a 136 brake horsepower synchronous electric motor mounted where the combustion engine would be under the bonnet. 50 kilowatt hour battery pack is carried over to the rally car, and that should help the e-Corsa complete more than a couple of special stages before they have to plug in and charge. Well, the first Lexus EV could well be a hatch, and there's a concept coming at the Tokyo Motor Show. The company behind Lexus, of course Toyota, is committed to launching, they say, 10 pure battery electric vehicles by 2025, with the first expected to arrive sometime next year in 2020. Some of these will come in the form of a Lexus car, Toyota's upmarket brand, and we may get a preview of what's coming in October's Tokyo Motor Show. Comments made by Lexus's chief engineer to Autocar reported that on Thursday, Lexus will present an EV concept at its home show that may well just preview what's coming up. It's, according to Motor Authority, a concept car, an evolution of the 2015 LFSA minicar concept. Although the concept hasn't been confirmed for production, Lexus is rumoured to be looking at adding a model similar to the UX subcompact SUV to their range. It looks very concept car-y, so I'm sure it'll get toned down by the time it finally arrives. And the thing that fascinates me is that sometime in 2020, Toyota say they will have a full battery electric vehicle on the market. Well, you've got about 15, 16, 17, 18 months to get round to that. Good luck. Well, the 2020 Chevrolet Bolt EV has got better. It's got more range. It's now rated at 259 miles, or 417 kilometres, EPA range. That surpasses its most direct alternatives. It is indeed more than the Leaf E Plus Techna, if it's called Techna trim where you are. I think it's called different trims in North America, actually. But the new Leaf E Plus with its 62 kilowatt-hour battery. Well, the alternative that almost matches the Chevrolet Bolt is the Kona. That's got 258 miles of range. Yes, just 1 mile less, says Pedro for Push EVs. The 2019 Bolt and the previous model years of it as well had 238 miles as opposed to 259 now. That's 367 kilometres as opposed to 417 now. The latest upgrade in battery capacity represents a 9% range increase for the Bolt. Still doesn't have adaptive cruise control. The Bolt and the Zoe. So the Bolt is a car you get in the USA that I can't buy, and the Zoe is the car that I own that if you're listening in the USA you can't buy. But we've got cars in both our markets, and actually neither of them have adaptive cruise control. And the new Renault Zoe as well, which is coming out, I think it doesn't. It has like lane keep assist and stuff, but I'm not sure it has adaptive cruise. Is it a big deal? Do you even care? Does it help you drive? Does it help you not get as fatigued? I'd love to hear comments on any of the stories that we report on anytime. You can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Good news that the Bolt goes further now, and good news for Bolt fans to actually get the Bolt in the news. It's a car that is very accomplished. The Bolt's a great car. Bolt owners always seem to love their car. It's a car that just never gets talked about, and I'm guilty of this, by the way. A car that just doesn't really seem to get the attention. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to get the attention of Tesla, because, of course, they have a CEO who rather likes his Twitter account and can generate a lot of free publicity. But still, the Bolt is a car that doesn't get a lot of attention, but is very accomplished and is a very good car. Moving to Singapore, and Singapore is in no rush to adopt a certain brand of electric car. In an interview with Bloomberg today, the government minister in Singapore offered a rebuttal to Tesla's Elon Musk and his criticism that the city-state is unwelcome to EVs. Investing in mass transit rather than Tesla superchargers is how Singapore, the nation of just under 6 million inhabitants, wants to tackle climate change, says Engadget. Singapore has embraced electric public buses and is working on developing a system of self-driving electric taxis. It certainly hasn't ruled out electric cars completely, but no, they're not enamoured with Tesla. Last October, the British car company Dyson announced that Singapore would be the manufacturing base for its first ever EV. I'll pop a link to Engadget in the show notes if you want to read more. A major new international study is next, and this was a big study. We'll get on to actually the size of it, but it shows independent associations between very short-term exposure to particulates, PM10, PM2.5, and daily cardiovascular, respiratory mortality in more than 600 cities all around the world, says Green Car Congress. Well, the study was led by Dr. Heidong Kan from the Fudan University in China. Now, they analysed data on air pollution and mortality. They covered 652 cities in 24 countries and regions. They found increases in total deaths that were linked to an increase in exposure to particulates, PM10, and fine particulates, PM2.5. An article from the Telegraph newspaper back in 2015 talked about the history of PM, particulate matter, being in the news, and particulates, the tiny soot particles that float in the air that you can't see, or maybe sometimes I suppose you can see a stinky diesel exhaust. Well, they were the first of the pollutants to be identified as toxic 22 years ago in what was at the time a very big Harvard study. The seminal research in 1993, dubbed the Six Cities Study, compared mortality rates in half a dozen representative US areas, and it followed the fates of over 8,000 adults over a 14-year period and their exposure to particulates. So this new study, somewhat bigger. 652 cities covered, 24 countries, and the same results found. Increased exposure, short-term exposure to PM10, PM2.5, fine particulate matter, and an increased risk of premature death and increased mortality rate. I'll pop a link to those articles in the show notes, including the old Telegraph article that I dug up today when I was researching this, if you want to read more. Finally, I know that's a serious story. It's important we deal with it on the podcast. It's one of the motivations that I have to do this work every day. But let's lighten the mood just slightly. Well, maybe it won't be a lightened mood. See what you make of this story. The Audi e-tron. The e-tron's navigation system was recently observed to have a rather interesting and notably humorous feature. It gives drivers of the Audi e-tron very useful information about their nearest petrol station and indeed the current petrol prices, says Simon at Teslarati. Well, as noted by drivers who shared images of the e-tron's nav system in action, these are e-tron buyers. They got their car, they were driving around and suddenly realised their car was recommending they pull into petrol stations. The all-electric SUV's infotainment screen displays petrol stations on the route they're on, but also the information is so detailed it includes the current price of petrol in those locations. It is a humorous story. I've kind of flitted between two different extremes on this story, so maybe I'll settle somewhere in the middle. On one hand, this is just funny. You buy an EV, and the darn thing recommends what petrol stations that you need to fill up in. On the other hand, you would never get that in a car that was designed to be only an EV. So, I mean, we know why it happens. We know that Audi have built a great, well, maybe not everyone thinks it's great, but a very luxurious EV in the e-tron. It makes sense that Audi in the e-tron are using their software, their data, their navigation system from their other cars. So they would take that and put it in the e-tron. And that makes me laugh. That's the humorous side of it. The bit that's a concern was that e-tron would have gone through hundreds, maybe millions of miles of testing. And you would think that at some point, somebody, if you're into EVs, right, a car, if you are buying an EV for the environmental reasons, and you buy an EV, and you spend a lot of money on the e-tron, it's not a cheap car, and it's recommending what petrol stations you pull into, surely one of the test drivers of that car, maybe it was hundreds of thousands, maybe it was millions of test miles, maybe someone along the line said, we have to change this. This is just going to annoy EV drivers. If the people working on that project were pure EV people, if they were engineers assigned to it, solving an engineering problem in a very brilliant way that Audi engineers would, because they're far smarter than I am. But if they weren't kind of like purebred EV people, they might not have felt offended at that. Maybe they would have noticed it and not noticed it, if that makes sense. Like they wouldn't see it as a problem. I'm confused how it's made it into a production, but also sort of not confused at the same time. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Brilliant. Nobody even picked up on that. But also, if they weren't spotting that, what does it say about the more serious things about the e-tron? I mean, I don't know. It made me laugh. Then it made me really concerned. Like, hang on, this is like if I was on a trip in the e-tron as a test driver and it was recommending petrol stations, you just put a request in for one of the software engineers, the devs, the designers to be like, look, by the time we get to production, we can't be doing this in an EV. And then I sort of flitted back to like, it's just funny. It's just humorous. I'm sure they'll fix it with an over-the-air update, or can the e-tron do over-the-air updates? Or a software update. I'm sure it'll get updated, rewritten. The code will be updated. No harm done. It's not the biggest boo-boo in the world. Or is it? Email me your thoughts, or leave them on Facebook and YouTube for everyone else to see. Let's get on to our question of the week this week. Thank you to Brian C. for sending this one in. Petrol users pay by quantity. EV drivers should also pay by quantity. All charging companies must be required by law to charge per kilowatt hour, not by time, and no connection charges either. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know your thoughts. We'll read them out on Sunday's show, which will be out on Monday. Thank you very much to 243 patrons of the podcast. Your generosity keeps me going. Hang on, I haven't started the music. Here we go. Your generosity keeps me going. Thank you so much. A full list of names being read out, as always, on Sunday's show. 558 previous episodes to download for free. If you can leave me a little review, I know you're busy, but the reviews on Apple iTunes are really important. If you get a chance, no worries if not. Come and say hi on the socials in the meantime by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.